right, folks. Hello. Welcome to my weekly live stream. I'm Chris. I am the host of Comic Tropes. This is my second channel, Pros and Cons, which I am now using for things like live streams. Got some other cool ideas coming up, but thank you so much, everybody that's joining. So what I do with this show is I go through what I've read in the past week in terms of comics, just give a quick review for a few minutes, and then I will get to drawing. Tonight I'm going to be drawing something from Red Room. That's the new horror comic by Ed Piskor through Fantagraphics. Hello Aldi, hello Oreo and Jeannie, that's my sister. That's always nice to have her here. Appreciate it, Jean. Yeah, this is exciting. Thank you so much. So, let me start out with what I've read, and this one I'm not quite done with yet, but obviously this is a tremendously popular manga, so I thought it made sense to check out what all the hype is about. That's something I feel like I should do with a comic book YouTube channel. Hello Iron Shell, hello Sir Mr. Howell, hello Raul Julia, hello A-Man. Obviously, there's a little bit of a delay in what I'm seeing for your chats. Not huge, but there's a little bit of a delay. So anyway, this is huge. I think that the anime is more popular than the manga, but obviously it's a literal adaptation. So I decided to see what it's all about. I like it okay. I can't say that I love this manga. The premise, if you haven't heard, it's set in a late era feudal Japan, and the main guy here, young kid, he lives with like a poor family up high in the mountains. He goes into town to sell some coal, and while he's gone, something kills his whole family except for his younger sister, who is in the process of being turned into a demon. But she hasn't killed yet, so she hasn't turned into a full demon. And he basically comes across a demon slayer who gives them a chance at understanding this bigger world that he's come across. One thing that I find very amusing is the sister, Nezuko. She constantly has like a little piece of bamboo in her mouth to bite so that like it keeps her from being tempted to bite people. The demons on this, like, sort of act a lot more like vampires. Anyway, the art is good. I don't know. It must take a while to get going. So far, I wasn't super into this. It's tremendously popular, though. I know that. Like, this is the thing. Anyway, it's decent. This one was fun. We're continuing on sort of a horror theme. It's Halloween. It's spooky season. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Dark Reyes, hello Tari. Nice to have so many people in here. I really appreciate that. This channel's obviously in the process of growing. Last year, there was a book by writer Joe Hill, the guy that did Lock and Key, and he's a novelist in his own right. He wrote Basket Full of Heads. Great horror comic. I really, really dug it. So good. This is sort of a follow-up set in that same universe by a new writer, Rio Ewers, overseen still by Joe Hill. It's called Refrigerator Full of Heads. Basically, the premise in this, there's a mystical axe, and if you decapitate someone with it, they don't die. Like, the head keeps on living. So in the first story, Basket Full of Heads, some criminals were like, like attacking this poor girl. She was like, defending herself, and she ended up accumulating something like 3 heads by the end of the story that she was like keeping in a basket, and they kept talking to her and taunting her. They were very obnoxious. In this story, there's an attack on a couple at this same island, okay? They go out fishing later, okay? So a shark attacks them. Kind of weird stuff. Anyway, this guy comes across like the axe when he was diving, and he defends his girlfriend with the axe. He chops off the shark's head. The shark's head is still alive. I don't know where this is going, but it ends with them chaining the shark's head up in the boathouse. I don't know where it's going, but I'm curious. So that was fun. Here's one by Boom Studios, who's really starting to get on my radar. I like Something Is Killing the Children by them, and this book is called Eat the Rich, which is just this disturbing class warfare book where a young lady is dating like a guy from a really wealthy family, and she finds out that this family, for some reason, they have contracts with all their hired help that eventually they'll kill and eat them. And she is trying to decide if she wants to be part of that family. It goes in some weird directions. What's cool, I don't know exactly where it's going. And that's a good thing for horror. Horror is good when it's like sort of one complete story and you don't know where it's going. That helps. Let's see, some more folks jumping in. So hello to Sarah. Hello, Eric. I was so excited to get this recently and at a good price. This is like, I think the last, if not, it's like the second to last Alien story that Dark Horse did before they lost the license to Marvel Comics. And it's by James Stokoe. He does the writing, the art, the lettering, I believe the coloring. He does it all. That's pretty unique in comics. It's really, really cool. And it's an alien story set aboard like a small sort of space station hub out in like the far reaches of space, only a crew of 6. It really reminded me a lot of the original Alien, and the art is fantastic. This is such a good story. Since it's from Dark Horse, it's not the easiest thing to come across. Not that it's that expensive right now, but it's not being reprinted. I think that there's a trade paperback of it, and you could maybe find these back issues at your comic book store. I really recommend it. Like, look at the kind of it's just really detailed in a cool way. It's a mix between like an indie style, some manga influences, some of that like hyper detailed American comics style that was popular in the 90s. Really, really unique. Oh my god, strong recommend. So far out of everything I've got like that I'm talking about, this is my strongest recommend. 4-issue series. Pick that up. Really excited. Here's what was probably the best thing I read this week. A lot of people type in. Do you think Marvel will republish the old Dark Horse and Predator stuff? Dark Horse Alien and Predator stuff? Probably eventually, but obviously they were supposed to launch their own Predator title a few months ago, and that has been delayed and hasn't come out. It seems like there are some legal issues behind the full ownership of Predator. I think Disney thought that they had the rights to that when they bought 20th Century Fox, and obviously they got the rights to Alien no problem. Predator seems to have something else going on behind the scenes, so it might be a little while until they have the full rights to publish that. But I bet it will get sorted eventually. Asadora. It's a story by Naoki Urasawa, one of my, if not my absolute favorite creators of comics. And you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, it's about a young girl. Like, this is the 4th volume. And you're like, why would that, like, necessarily connect with me? Well, first of all, Urasawa always has a way to make his stories connect with you. Like, he grounds people in a real way. Like, they feel like real people. You can tell them apart from one another. They're very expressive. But when he needs to do, like, real world stuff, it's very detailed. I mean, I'm sure his assistants help, but he still has a style to it all. So his characters have a lot of personality, and he creates interesting, epic stories, like really believable characters that have interesting flaws. So it's sometimes hard to predict exactly where it's going. But the coolest thing about this is the core of the story is that there's some sort of gigantic Godzilla-type monster out in the harbor. And this is set back in the, I want to say the 60s at this point. I got to remember when this one is, because it jumps around in time. All we know is that one day, in the modern day, Asadora will be somebody that saves Japan from this monster. But right now, we're watching her grow up. Right now, she's only 17 years old. She's sort of like helping raise a couple of her siblings after the rest of her family went missing during an attack from this monster. She's raised by some really interesting characters, not family. She's an amazing pilot. She really changes the life of people around her for the better. She's just a really positive but strong-willed person, and she's just really likable. You really like Asadora no matter what, and I love this comic. So this was like probably my favorite thing that I read this past week, okay? Moving forward, let's get to the drawing soon. Picked up some back issues at my store. I always do that. This time I just picked up 2 sort of random back issues of Spider-Man that are both Hobgoblin stories. I think Hobgoblin is an underrated Spider-Man villain. We haven't really seen a lot used with Hobgoblin in years, but in the 80s and 90s, Hobgoblin was a pretty major Spider-Man villain. It's sort of gone back to just Green Goblin, not Norman Osborn or Harry, but Hobgoblin is also a really cool villain that's traditionally a mercenary with access to the same stuff that Green Goblin has. Very different motivations. He's not crazy. He's like a professional criminal. Like he's got goals. Anyway, I like Hobgoblin. And then I got this. It was the first issue of Spider-Woman where she meets Spider-Man. You'd think she would be aware of Spider-Man, because at this point he'd been around for a long time. No, when they bump in, she's like, there's a Spider-Man? So she came up with this whole look and name and stuff, supposedly without knowing about him, or I don't know. It's a funny, cool story. Last thing I read, and this is maybe tied for best thing I read this week. I am a humongous fan of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips as a creative team. They do such good comics. Just one of my absolute favorites. I also really like crime comics. And this is the latest book by them. They now do a series called Reckless. That's the last name of the main character. A former FBI agent that now just sort of goes around solving individual problems for people. Kind of more of an A-Team type of story, if you ever watched that show. And they don't put this out as floppies, like this. They don't put it out as a monthly. They put together a whole graphic novel and release the story in full. And it's paced well for that. So, if you like crime stories that have a mystery with maybe an interesting twist at the end, that's this. I wouldn't call this my absolute favorite of the series, though. I think that the villain was a little less developed than the first 2 books in this series. But it's still fantastic. Great art, great writing. So, last thing I read this week, and definitely up there in terms of what I read this week being great. Reckless is super, super strong. So, this week, Reckless and Asadora get my highest recommendations, and if you're looking into back issues, Aliens Dead Orbit. All right. Let me move a few things around here on my screen so that I can see everybody. Today, I am drawing something that's based on something. Based on 2 things, really. It's just sort of a mashup of ideas. There is a horror comic called Red Room by Ed Piskor. He's one half of the YouTube channel Cartoonist Kayfabe. Definitely recommend them if you want to see some professionals give their thoughts daily on different comic book techniques and artists and comic book history. Some of his covers and fan art for Red Room have been homages to famous comics and famous horror movies. So somehow nobody had done this one yet. I'm doing this based on a famous poster from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hopefully that's obvious. I think it's obvious. Very directly referenced from that. So, and it's one of the main characters in there. Red Room is a story about the dark web and people that torture and kill other people for profit. It's supposedly untracked with cryptocurrency paying for everything. There's these dark room forums where these terrible murderers are killing people. And it tells like unique stories every issue, either about like how somebody gets into that, or a victim's story, or the people that are trying to stop it and uncover like the corruption. So it's a multi-layered story. It's classic exploitation fare, just to be clear. It's not really necessarily deep. It's splatter, punk, gore stuff. But I'm a kind of jaded guy. I like horror, and I'm enjoying the book for what it is. And anyway, so I was going to do a piece of fan art today for it. I thought that would be fun. And yeah, why am I always hearing red rum from The Shining in my head when you say red rum? I'm sure it's it's probably intentional. Sean Phillips did an illustration for my Wallalina graphic novel. He's a fantastic artist. Oh, he really is. Congratulations on securing that, Daniel. That's quite an accomplishment, because, yeah, I'm sure he's a very busy guy. Let me zoom in slightly here. I feel like I could, you guys will be able to see things a little better if I just zoom in and move my art around as needed. I'm going to try to throw in a lot of blacks, and I'm trying to mimic the layout of the original poster with some white space here. That what my plan is to go in with Photoshop, if the art comes out well, and put like some red room text there. And then I'll just, show it to Ed and see if he gets a kick out of it. And I feel like even if it doesn't come out great, why wouldn't he get a kick out of it? I feel like if somebody does fan art based on something you created, that's very flattering. Oh, speaking of like art for you, oh my God, folks, I had just a fantastic thing happen to me this past week. I'm older. I've been like working and like on the fringes of comics and, reading comics for ages, for decades. And if you jump back in time, like something like 20 years, maybe more, no, about 20 years, I would say. I was in the like pitching comics at that point in time, like that I would write, and one of them that we came so close, like we had a tentative approval from Image. It was like an informal thing. Robert Kirkman, obviously now he's a partner. At the time he just had, Walking Dead and Invincible there, but we'd known each other forever, and I told him about this idea and shown him. Robert sort of like showed it to, I can't even remember right now if it was Jim Valentino or Eric Larson that was like approving pitches, but they said they liked what they saw, to quickly get some pages so that they could see some more, but that they thought that it was something, a book that they wanted to do. So I didn't have a contract, but it sounded like it was gonna happen. But unfortunately, my artist had some like real life stuff like just come up, and he just decided he just didn't want to draw anymore. He just didn't want to make comics anymore. He was so talented, and it like sort of broke my heart for like two reasons. Like I was feeling for him that he was, emotionally hurting so much at the time, and I was disappointed that like, this really excellent shot at having, essentially a mainstream comic fell apart. It hurt. That was a long time ago now though, so I've gotten over it. It was just part of my past, and made me a stronger person, made me understand how everything works. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. Jeez, sorry. Anyway, that's all backstory. So anyway, I'd written a comic, and it was going to be like a 64-page story. Didn't know yet whether that was going to be like a one-shot or, maybe like 4 issues or 3 issues or something like that. But it was about 64 pages. It was probably going to be done as a one-shot. The artist, and he's so talented, and I'm going to show you what the art is, because he did about 20 pages for it. Oh, I loved it. But yeah, like it dried up before like we had enough to show someone. We like I was waiting on more pages, so like they never got lettered or colored or anything. They were just the artwork. So it all fell apart. Anyway, the nice, happy part of all of this is that because my YouTube is, has a decent audience and everything, the artist found me. And there was no ill will or anything. He's in a good place now. He's like got a completely different career. He's got a family. And he was like, I still have the artwork. Would you like it? And I was like, oh my God, Larry, I would absolutely love to have that. I'm not really in a position though to like pay for it or anything. Like if you can wait a little while, I would love to buy that from you, And he was like, you know what? Like he goes, he basically told me that was okay. That, it was really just keeping space in his house at this point. He wanted me to have it. Oh, that was so kind of him. It meant the world to me. Like, well, anyway, he sent it. And I happen to have some of it here. Let me just show you some of this. Actually, it's 2 of these pages are from another pitch that we were putting together. So this is from a different story. This is more of a comedy story that I had about like 3 detectives in the future. And it was called something like Future Detectives. It starts with like a U.S. Marshal getting accidentally yanked forward in time, and these criminals that were going to like shoot him get blown up. Meanwhile, it cuts to the far future, and there's this kung fu prodigy, but his real dream is just to become a professional dancer. Those are 2 of the 3 future detectives. The other one is a cyborg who gets laid off from his job at the cock ring factory. And anyway, all 3 of these guys end up at the unemployment line in the future. They foil a crime that occurs there, and they decide to go into business for themselves as a detective agency. Pretty silly, I know, but maybe I'll revisit that someday. I feel like it's pretty funny. They meet characters like Sherlock Holmes and the Ghost of Christmas Past. It's a pretty weird idea, but I think it's funny. This is the other story, and this is from a book I had called Versus. And this is the main character, Gray. It starts with him just sort of like waking up, like sort of he'd been knocked out in a motel bathroom. He's on the job. There's a page missing here, but like he wakes up and he tackles the guy that he's going after. Let me open up the chat room to see if people have questions about this, or if you want me to get back to drawing. Anyway, nothing too exciting yet. Oh, there's the page that's missing. So like the criminal that he was like taking like stabs him in the back. He manages to get free and he stabs Gray, and Gray passes out. And then there's some more pages missing, but he wakes up in, is it the future or something like that? Well, the overall story is, like he gets out of a cell and he starts meeting all these different people throughout different eras of time. But the one thing they all have in common is they're all fighters. So we've got like, revolutionary soldiers and police officers, World War I, circus strongmen, pirates, various fighters from like Japan and Africa and Thailand and stuff, crusaders and luchadors. They're all just like, he eventually learns that they've been abducted by aliens, and they've abducted great warriors throughout time, and they've just forced them to fight for their entertainment. Great fighters. And this guy Gray gets put into a fight with a sumo wrestler. He proves his mettle. At one point he meets like, he's given like a concubine for his win. The aliens like send this lady to like please him, but he's like, he's more moral than that. He's not going to do that. Eventually he learns that she's like more like a princess. She's like, like, wait, what? You're not going to sleep with me? Like, I thought that's what was anyway. And so then these are the aliens that are constantly like monitoring them and everything. They're really unknowable, weird dudes that just, this is their entertainment. For them, it's very easy to abduct people. They cryogenically freeze them, and they just like thaw people out. So basically, anybody that's ever gone missing, they've abducted them so that they could have them fight in gladiatorial combat games. And it's sort of a a Spartacus story, but with all sorts of weirdos. So if you've ever seen Spartacus with, like, a slave becoming, a warrior and then becoming a leader, it's that sort of a story. He makes friends with, like, a boxer and a pirate. He has to have a much bigger battle against a Roman centurion. That's kind of exciting. And I thought this guy had such great energy and such clarity and such... it was good storytelling panel to panel. There was good expressions, good gesture. I loved it. Yeah, just a fight against this gladiator, and he's a weird-looking guy, but Gray is our hero, and he ultimately triumphs over that. And he meets some more people that are like potential allies, because he is not okay with the status quo, and he's like, we're all amazing guys, like we can figure out a way to overcome this superior technology. But it takes a while to earn the respect of everybody. He gets hassled by some Irish hooligans here, and there's a big sort of a mess hall fight. It starts as a food fight, and here we've got like the last page that I was given, which is just all sorts of amazing warriors all beating each other up. And that was just basically Act 1, establishing the scenario. And from there it goes into, his plans to save them all and to get free from these alien overlords. And then there's some twists to the story beyond that. I had like ideas, if it took off, where it could go from there after they're free. There's a lot more backstory. But I'm not going to bore you all with that. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll make verses. How quick was he putting out the pages? Well, initially he was very quick. And then he just had some life stuff come up, and he just didn't want to finish it. And I waited too long to sort of communicate that to Robert and to Image, and they were like, yeah, things fall apart, and never mind. And I was like, yep, okay, my bad. I learned. Gotta stay in touch. Gotta stay in much better communication if you've got a potential deal with everybody. And I look back, and I probably just should have had more money for a project like this, so that I could have other people working on it at the same time. Like, I was very young. I didn't really have any money, but I should have if I was going to do this, I should have invested in a professional letter and colorist and stuff, so that this stuff could be there'd be more forward momentum on it all. So that was the lesson that I learned. So it was called Versus, and somewhere I've got some, of the character designs I did for characters and aliens, and I'd love to revisit it someday. It's not my priority really right now, but it's still an idea that I think has legs. So if I ever had an opportunity, I'd love to find an artist that maybe had similar style to my original artist, and I could just sort of pick up from scratch. And I think I'd tweak things now, because I'm a lot older, and I think that my writing has probably gotten a little more disciplined. But yeah, so that's the story of how I almost had a comic years ago, like about 20 years ago. Long time ago. Long time ago. But it was very exciting for me to get that original art and to be brought back to the feelings that I had there. In some ways, I just look at myself and I was like, oh, Chris, you were so naive, to just think everything was going to come together so easily. I wasn't putting in the effort that I should have when I was that close. But I didn't know. And so that delayed it, and my life took another path. But now I'm getting much more connected to comics again, thanks to my YouTube channel. After my health scare earlier this year, I've been writing hardcore on a new comic idea. This one is a werewolf horror story. I just feel like there's not any great werewolf stories out there. There's one or two decent ones, but I don't feel like there's many great ones. And so that's what I'm working on. Daniel has a comment in here, and he's a guy that's had some comics published, smaller press indie, but like definitely had comics published. And he says, I've also learned to communicate often with artists when I write graphic novels. So important. You're like, well, obviously, right? But, it's easy to like wait, 5 days, a week. You're not talking to them. You don't want to like feel like you're hassling somebody. But no, like when you're working on a project, you need to stay in touch, and that's on you. Ideally, that's the job of like an editor. But if you're doing something that doesn't have like an editorial staff, the writer basically becomes the de facto project manager, with rare exceptions when say the idea came from somebody else that maybe is just plotting it or something. But basically, the writer has that obligation to keep everyone in contact and keep things on pace. That's just the way it is. Thanks for the compliment, Jeannie. I appreciate it. Werewolf Captain America was a good werewolf story. It was a werewolf story. I will agree with you there. I don't know if it was a good one. I didn't dislike it or hate it or anything, because I did love Mark Gruenwald's era of Captain America. I would say it's in my top 3 Captain America runs. Ed Brubaker would probably be my favorite Captain America run. And then my second favorite would either be the original stories with Jack Kirby and Joe Sinnott, just because of how original they were, or the Mark Gruenwald run, which was very long, and he created a lot of amazing characters like Crossbones and stuff like that, and developed a lot of great characters. So anyway, yeah. Let's start fleshing out this guy. He wears sort of a plague mask, you could say. Obviously needs to keep his identity hidden, because what he's doing is very, very illegal. Torturing these poor people. And I've never drawn these characters before, so it's tricky to do that. Ultimately, I think of myself more of a writer than an artist. Obviously, I love drawing. But I don't think I'm fast enough or really talented enough to do something on the level of what I just showed you. What my artist Larry did for me. And I don't think that's a lack of confidence. I really feel like I'm being realistic there, like I don't know if what I'm doing here, I just don't see Image Comics, for instance, picking that up. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think I'm just being realistic. Yeah, the Gruenwald era could be a little uneven, but he wrote it for a very, very long time. So, I sort of cut him a little slack there, essentially. But yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, what am I drawing here? Like, hopefully it comes out looking good, but all I'm doing is mixing an idea up that's already been done. Like, some great artist came up with a cool poster for Texas Chainsaw Massacre that's fairly iconic. I know that. I'm not trying to pretend like I've done something super original and unique here. I just want to make something that looks cool. What about Mark Waid's run and Ron Garney's on Cap? Yeah, it was fun. That one was cut short initially, and I think that had an impact, and that's why I wouldn't quite put it in my personal top 3, but it was definitely a fun run. John Byrne had a fun run on Captain America, but it was also quite short. Am I looking forward to the new Chip Zdarsky and Jacob Phillips crime series Newburn? I didn't know about that, Sarah, but I do appreciate both of those creators, so I'm intrigued. I'm definitely intrigued, yeah. Probably something I would pick up. If I saw that, I would definitely pick it up. the reason I guess I thought like of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for this is this particular torturer guy is kind of a heavy set, tubby guy, and it just made me think of like one of the few famous slasher movie villains that's also pretty heavy set is Leatherface. You know, I had a friend, Evan Valentine, ask on Twitter the other week, or the other day, I don't know, recently. He goes, which horror movie franchise has been rebooted or has more continuities, he said. Which has more continuities? Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre? And at first I go, well, it's Halloween, right? I mean, they had the first two movies, then the third had nothing to do with anything, and then the fourth one sort of said, Jamie Lee Curtis is dead, but let's go, and they had like 4, 5, 6. And then they did H2O, which said, no, 1 and 2 happened, but everything else didn't. And they did a sequel to that. And then they threw all that out, and Rob Zombie came in and made 2 movies that sucked. And now there's a new continuity, like with Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, that says the first movie took place, but none of the others did. So that's like what? 1, 2, 3, 4... Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... 7 continuities? But then, if you look at, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like, even the first 4 movies that were sort of supposedly all in that original series are all wildly different from each other, and you could easily argue that, like, that second movie is, like, in a completely new continuity, even though Tobe Hooper directed the first 2. It's just totally different. So then you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4 that are all very different and could easily be argued to be in different continuities. And then there were like 2 more reboots. So it's sort of like, yeah, I think that like, they may be tied, but it's close. I'm going to use a really thin Pigma Micron technical pen here to do some hatching for texture. Be going back. I just want to have this beak area have some sort of definition to it that stands out. And I'll probably go back and add even more. Yeah. I want it to have sort of a used leathery appearance. Where's my eraser? I've got a good eraser. I needed eraser somewhere around here. I thought. I'll find it later, I guess. Let's see. But I want to take questions too. Let's see. Did you hear Brendan Fraser is going to be Firefly in the Batgirl movie for HBO Max? No, I didn't hear any of that. Like that's all pretty new to me. I didn't even hear that there was going to be a Batgirl movie specifically for HBO Max. So, if that's the case, that's interesting, but I didn't know anything about it. Burns' run was cut short prematurely. He had a plan to make Cap the president of the U.S., and that was going to be a long storyline. Yeah, I remember. Halloween had some weird sequels, as you said. They changed the rules on if he is regular or supernatural powered. Yeah, I don't think any of the movies have, like, explicitly said that he's supernatural powered so much as they sort of hint that that's, like, maybe a possibility. Although some of them have come closer than others. I don't know. Yeah. They should go back to the Thorn story after this. Referring to the infamous Halloween 6, which, until Rob Zombie came along, I thought was definitely the worst of the series. Although, does have Paul Rudd in his first movie role. the character that he played, young Tommy, was that the name of the kid that Laurie babysitted in the first movie? I think it was. In the latest movie, that character comes back, but this is a new continuity. And at first I was like, oh, still, even though it's a new continuity, maybe they should have brought back Paul Rudd playing that same character, right? And then I was like, oh, but wait. Judy Greer is in this new series as the daughter of the main character, like Laurie Strode. And then I was like, that would probably be pretty weird if, like, they were playing opposite each other just because they play, like, ex-husband and wife in the Ant-Man movies, which have seen by lots and lots and lots of people. So that would probably have been kind of weird if they used that. The producer's cut is way better despite... I don't know that it's way better. I think it's, like, cooler because it does have, like, some more violence, and it probably makes a little more sense. I would probably say that it makes a little more sense, but I don't think it solves the problems there. Donald Pleasance is pretty old in that movie, and, you know, Dr. Loomis is just out of control, weird. Just the idea of the cult and giving Michael Myers that specific reason that, like, it all sucked. It all sucked. Yeah, I don't care too much for that movie. In the latest movie, they've got a flashback scene, and it just briefly, this isn't a spoiler or anything, briefly you see Dr. Loomis, who's played in the original by Donald Pleasance. And I was like, oh, wow, how'd they do that? I go, that's some, like, really amazing deep fake technology. What can I say? I assume things are digital now. And then I found out that no, it was just makeup. They got, like, a look-alike, some really good makeup prosthetics, and a sound-alike. I was like, that's amazing. It's really amazing. Let's see. Hello, Jeff. Says, hope you're well, Chris. I'm doing pretty well. You just covered Sam Keith and was curious as to your thoughts on the Mtv series if you've seen it. Oh, yeah, I did see it. I put a little clip in to the episode, just like referencing that period in time. So, yeah, I'm aware of it. It was interesting. It was cool. You know, I remember when it was on, it wasn't Liquid Television per se. Was it? Like, was Liquid Television the name of the show, or was it the name of the programming block that MTV had? I don't remember. If it was just a programming block, then I guess it was Liquid Television that had it. I remember it was like the Max was something like a 15-minute show, and it was paired with an original show called The Head. And I remember, like, watching it to watch the Max and liking the Max, but sort of enjoying that show The Head more. Like, I got into that one a little bit more. I didn't expect to, but I was like, yeah, I kind of like it. Yeah, it was a loyal adaptation. It animated images like that were like looked like they came straight out of the comic. That was cool. That was very cool. That was at a time when, like, most adaptations of comic material was loose at best. You know, we didn't really get. And I don't want, like, a literal adaptation every time, but I want, like, you know, the origin and the motivation for characters to, like, really be accurate. I want their powers to be accurate and stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that I look for in a good adaptation. Like the motivations from the origin to be accurate, the visuals to be accurate, the personality to be intact, and the powers to be correct. But if you want to, like, mix up the actual story itself, I'm fine with that. Like, that makes all the sense in the world. I tried reading the first 2 issues of the Max and got really bored of it. You know, it isn't for everybody's taste. It's really unique. So, yeah. I'm pissed at Blumhouse for caving to John's saltiness over Halloween 2 and removing it from canon. Too many timelines. It's a lot, but I don't think you really lose too much by pulling Halloween 2 out, because Halloween 2 was the one that established that Laurie was the sister of Michael Myers, and I don't think that really added anything too great to the story. I think it just hung the series up on like that idea forever that for some reason Michael Myers was obsessed with killing his family, and I don't think that's as scary as just the idea of a guy that's a killer. You know, if he's got like if the motivation is he wants to kill his family, I'd be like, okay, well, A, I'm not his family, so I guess I'm okay, and B, if I want to like watch out for like his family, let's just move them into protective custody, and I think we're pretty good, you know, like this guy. Anyway, so having that as his like overriding motivation, I never loved that. The movie started to feel very repetitive when that became the whole story, very repetitive. And so a lot of people don't really love this newest Halloween. I get it. It is kind of dumb in a lot of ways, and every character in the movie just keeps saying, evil dies tonight. It's like, whatever. But at least it sort of did something new, having like, you know, a whole town go out of control, like become an angry mob. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like, I can get behind that, personally. I guess I liked it more than some. But I do understand why some people weren't too into it. H4 was the one that leaned into the family plot. It did, and yet at the time I would say that Halloween 4 was decent. It was better than 5 and 6 in my opinion. So, yeah. Most of the characters were unlikable. Yeah, I would probably agree with you on that one, Steve. Hey, Chris, this might be a weird question. Are there any X-Men stories from the point of view of a non-mutant dealing with being around such exceptional people? Great question, Penguin. I believe there are one or two stories that have more of a viewpoint from a non-superpowered person. I can't point to a specific issue, but I can point to like the general era. When Claremont was writing New Mutants, they had teachers, and one of them, I can't remember the character's name right now. She's like a black lady that like was one of their main teachers. I want to say her name was Stevie. And you would at least get some of the story sometimes from her point of view in those early era New Mutants comics when she was there. And then there are some stories from the Claremont Byrne run of X-Men. I don't know that you ever got a full issue like this because he liked to go back and forth to different subplots. But Moira McTaggart at the time was human. That's been retconned in recent years. She has a very unique mutant power. But it doesn't change the fact that those issues were written more from the point of view of a person. Madeline Pryor was from like the Claremont Silvestri era, basically, and like whoever the artist was just before Silvestri, was it John Romita Jr.? It's hard for me to remember that far back for sure. Some pieces of the story would be told from Madeline's point of view. She was wronged. That was so. There's a few that like more have snippets of story from like that point of view, and I do think that it would be a good idea to do more like that. I think I always used to say that it would be interesting to have a non-mutant on the X-Men team itself. And they did that a little bit on New Mutants with Warlock, because Warlock was actually an alien. But I meant more like, you know, a character like, you know, Iron Fist or Darkhawk or something like that. Like, decides, like, hey, I'm for, you know, mutant equality, and I'm going to, like, you know, hang my hat with these guys for a while. I always thought that would be interesting. But Rick Remender did a bit of that with Uncanny Avengers, where they created the Avengers Unity team, led by Havoc, but had Captain America and Thor, but some mutants too, like Rogue and Scarlet Witch. They had Wasp on the team. And so that was interesting, seeing mutants and non-mutants work together as a team. I like that. I always wanted that to go further. I wanted that to go longer. Ultimately, that was kind of a short run, but it was a cool idea. Because, yeah, I mean, any minority group will usually have allies from other areas. Could be other minorities, and can sometimes be people that aren't from a protected class. And I feel like the X-Men should lean into that. Or maybe not right now, because right now they're doing a story where the X-Men are very much, living... It's not isolationist, but like living their own way. Like, they've had enough with humanity, and it's an interesting story that's worth telling. But Professor X's dream is harmony, and I think that would be still interesting to tell. Like, take a maybe a C-list superhero that is already established, and put him on the X-Men. I'm just like throwing it out there. Darkhawk or Sleepwalker or somebody like that. Like, find a reason why I don't know, Moon Knight starts dating Rogue or something, and so he joins the team. I don't know. I think that would be interesting. J.R. Jr. was right before Silvestri. Thank you. She was introduced before J.R. Jr. when Paul Smith was briefly on the books. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because that was when Cyclops was written out for a little while. Right? Paul Smith. Yep. Paul Smith is super underrated X-Men artist. Right between guys like John Romita Jr. and Dave Cockrum and John Byrne, like some big names, and Paul Smith was in there. And Paul Smith had a really nice, clean art style that I thought worked really well. Sleepwalker returns. Thanks, by the way, for everybody for joining me. Obviously, it's going to take me a while to sort of grow this second channel. I just didn't want to be... I decided I wanted to do these regularly, first of all. I wanted to do regular live streams where I give people the opportunity to just sort of talk comics with me, or talk about the show if you have questions about my show, or, just things that are related to comics, the movies, the toys, whatever that might be. And, but then when I decided I was going to do it like regularly, like weekly, I was like, yeah, I just can't do this on my main channel. Like, that just, not everybody wants it. Not everybody wants it. So, that's why I decided it was time to use this second channel. I do have an idea for one or two sort of like weirder videos that probably wouldn't fit on my main channel. So I'll put them up here as I have the time to do so. I think if I traveled again, like once it gets safe, for instance, and at this point, like if I visit like, Japan again, or the UK, or wherever, France, I don't know. Hopefully I'm so lucky. I would like to do some sort of travel vlogs, but like with an eye to visiting the comic book stores that are there. And I'd probably put that on this channel. Excited for Hawkeye TV series? I definitely am. Hawkeye has not really been, given too much justice in the movies yet. He hasn't exactly been like disrespected per se, but they haven't really done a lot with Hawkeye. They've only done a little bit with him. But that run with art by David Aja and who was writing it? Matt Fraction was doing some great writing on it. Like some real good, grounded, down-to-earth Hawkeye stuff. Hawkeye. Good idea for taking inspiration for a TV show. Kate Bishop is a great character, and those two have a great relationship with each other. That sort of mentor-mentee relationship. And so, yeah, I think that it looks fun. you know, when I see stuff like that, I can't help but like also just be like, are they compensating guys like Matt Fraction and David Aja for adapting very literally a lot of the ideas that they created? And the answer is probably not. Probably not. I'm excited for it. It looks funny. I agree, Gene. I think it looks really fun and funny. I think like a lot of people will find that they really like Kate Bishop. She's a great character. And I think it continues this sort of phase 4 stuff that they're doing with the TV side of the Marvel Studios, where they seem to be laying the groundwork for introducing a bunch of characters that could be on something like Young Avengers. Not necessarily a literal like one for one getting the team from like one particular era of the comics, but I think that they've established, say in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they've got a version of Patriot that they could introduce. They've got Kate Bishop, as the new Hawkeye. We've got the Ms. Marvel show coming out pretty soon. What else am I... WandaVision introduced her kids. Those they could probably come back aged up a little bit somehow. Actually, they're making an Agatha Harkness show apparently. So yeah, I think it's entirely possible some of those characters could come back in a form that could be used on either a TV show or a movie. I think Young Avengers and Thunderbolts and maybe Dark Avengers could all be things that they might use for future iterations of Avengers, like sort of different versions of them. I always wanted to check out and visit Japan, like you, to visit comic-related stuff, and maybe go to Comiket. Any places you would recommend for first-time trip to Japan? Well, I mean, if those are the things you're interested in, how could I not recommend Tokyo? Tokyo is a massive city that's really more like, a bunch of cities. And has all sorts of that stuff that's become popular here in the West. But if you think that you want more of, the authentic Eastern experience, you're probably going to have to go further out and be willing to travel. You're going to want to go to a more remote area. But if that is the case, then you either need to book it through a guide or learn how to speak Japanese. If you go to Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, you'll probably get by just fine. But after that, if you go an hour outside the city, you're a gaijin that needs to be able to speak the language and read. So you can't take that for granted. Yeah, I would love to do some more of that. I've been studying as much Japanese as I can, every day on Duolingo for years, but I'm still pretty bad at it. I needed to take an actual immersive class to get better at Japanese, actually talk to people, because when it all merges together very quickly, the actual dialogue for me. I just can't separate it very well yet. But I've always been bad at that with every language. I took Spanish for 4 semesters or something in college because it was required, and a lot of the vocabulary can come back to me sometimes, but actually speaking it, I'm terrible. I have to use just baby phrases and just single words when I try to communicate with people that speak Spanish. It's hard. I'm not very good at it. I wish I was, but I'm not. Our Man in Japan with James May on Amazon if you want ideas where to go outside tourist areas. Sure. Well, there's also a lot of great YouTube channels. I like Chris Broad, abroad in Japan. British guy that's been living there for a number of years, came as to teach English as a teacher and has stayed and developed quite a popular YouTube channel. And once you watch him, you'll start getting introduced to a bunch of other really entertaining individuals that have YouTube channels there. So yeah, there's a lot of good YouTube channels that have expats from various countries living over there and exploring and taking you outside of the city to other places. And it's fun. I miss it a lot, though. I will say that so far, out of everywhere I've traveled, Japan is my personal favorite. I really like it there. And it's not always for, like, you know, the traditional sort of nerdy stuff. I just feel comfortable there. I've always had a good experience. I really miss it. I really, really miss it, and I want to go back. Funnily enough, I'm drawing something based on Red Room by Ed Piskor, and just this past week, he was posting how much he also missed visiting Japan, because he was there about this time like 2 years ago, and I was there like literally days after him. I just missed getting to see him there, and he was like, hey, you know, like, once it's safe, we should, like, go together and or at least, like, meet up there and you know, discuss like, do some comic related YouTube content. And I was like, boy, that sounds fun. That's a great idea. So I don't know. If he was serious, I'm totally up for something like that, Ed. But there's other places I'd love to visit too, you know? I mean, and there's only so much time. If this channel was super popular, you would see me traveling a lot more. And I'd be going to places like, let's see the comics of Belgium and France. Let's go to Australia and see what they've got. Hell, let's go to Thailand and just see what kind of, like, you know, imported comics or indie stuff they've got, self-published stuff they've got there. I think that all of that would be really interesting. Yeah, foreign comics fascinate me because they can often have, like, just much different cultural touchstones that are important to them. One thing I've never seen is, like, Russian comic books, and I'm sure they must exist. So I'd love to see some Russian comics someday. Funimation actually approached James O'Barr to turn The Crow into an anime, but unfortunately it didn't happen because he didn't own the film rights. That's true, I think. Yeah, I believe he did sell the full rights, film rights, which is why there have been a bunch of sequels that weren't really based on any particular comic. There have been a bunch in the Crow TV show and stuff. I don't think, like, O'Barr has ever, like, had anything negative about any of that to say, but it's not based on, like, his stories anymore because they own the property. I believe he has the rights to do, like, whatever comics, but not, like, the movies. I think. I'm not 100% sure. How many people here went to see Dune or are interested in seeing Dune? Dune is an interesting sci-fi property. It's not as easily accessible as something like Star Wars or even Star Trek, but it does have some big ideas and something to say, which makes it very interesting. I saw it. I thought it was great. Do you think Joe Simon is just as important as Lee, Kirby, Ditko, etc. for comics? Look, I can't say that he's as important. Is he important? No question. No question. He's super important. Is he as important? Like, certain people make a bigger impact than others. Even if you want to, like, criticize Stan Lee for, like, you know, that he didn't write as much as he appeared to write or something, you know? Something like that. He still promoted comics to the mainstream. He was still a hype man and a pitch man that made a big impact, you know, to a lot. He introduced a lot of people to comics. So he is very important in a couple ways. And, you know, I don't think, I don't know. I was going to say, like, some of the characters he created, people didn't, like, really fight him as being the co-creator. But then again, some of them, they did. So it's messy. Messier than I wish it was, but it just is. I don't know. I don't think I can say that, like, Joe Simon continued to have the outsized impact that somebody like Jack Kirby did. You know, Jack Kirby kept creating things throughout his whole career. He never really ever slowed down. He kept creating. So, yeah. New movie is lacking the visual design and colors I associate with Dune. Well, that stuff is, yeah, in your head. I'll be seeing it later this week. Villeneuve is a fantastic director. Just watched Midsummer early tonight. Not bad, but I preferred Hereditary. I'd agree with that. I think that Midsummer was definitely good, but I also preferred Hereditary. Hereditary freaked me out a lot more. That was one of the better horror movies in the last several years. Hereditary was. Anyone have thoughts on the Bill Sienkiewicz Dune adaptation? It's great. It's good stuff. And he obviously cares about Dune. Bill Sienkiewicz does, because he also has done some work for the new one. If you follow him on social media, he's posted some of the designs and stuff that he came up with for like posters and stuff. Beautiful composition, as always. What a talent. Sienkiewicz is something special, and in my opinion, very underrated within comics. I'll do an episode on him sometime, like to talk more. You know, I did something where I talked about his work on New Mutants, but I'd love to do a deep dive on his career. He's great. I felt Hereditary was similar to Rosemary's Baby. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I didn't really get that sense. I mean, hey, I'm not invalidating your opinion. I just didn't get that same feeling. I felt like the horror in Rosemary's Baby was coming more from like things like how her husband and neighbors were gaslighting her constantly, like just telling her that she was, you know, imagining things, whereas Hereditary was more about like the horror of like, you know, family secrets, something like that, and mental illness. Just my take. Ed mentioned they should make Jodorowsky's Dune into a graphic novel, which sounds amazing. Sure. Yeah, they probably should. It wouldn't be the same, just to be clear, because the amazing thing about what Jodorowsky was putting together were the people involved in that project, you know? He was getting guys like Mobius. He was getting guys like Giger. He was getting... who else? Like Dali. Salvador Dali was going to be involved. You know, he was getting like all these wild things. Mick Jagger. You know, he was getting such diverse talent, and you can't put those talents into a comic book. At least not today. So you'd always sort of be missing that element that would make it Jodorowsky's Dune. What you could do is read his Metabarons stuff that he did with Mobius, because he took a lot of the ideas that he wanted to impart into Dune and just created his own comics, and that's kind of awesome, you know? He just did his own thing. What a fantastic way to rebound. And aren't we lucky that we got so many weird, unique comics because of that whole thing? Anyway. Just my 2 cents. I took a date to see Lighthouse and another date to Midsummer, and they never called me back. Well, you know what? If that's what you like, and that's what you wanted to go see, then you should have taken them there, because you want somebody that's compatible. Now, they don't have to be as big a fan, but you want somebody that's compatible. You know? my fiance, she's not as big a fan of stuff like, she doesn't read Marvel comics or anything like that. But she respects the art and she likes going to the movies with me. She has a good time. So you need somebody that's compatible. And she'll go to horror movies. If I'm like, I really want to see this horror movie, will you go? And she'll be like, yeah, of course. So I feel like no great loss. You got a date out of it, and if it didn't go anywhere, that's okay. It wasn't a good fit, right? I don't know. Did you play any video games recently? No, I haven't even played the ones that I have like in quite a while. I just don't have any time for that if I want to stay on a weekly schedule for comic tropes. Like, technically, like, I guess I could be playing a video game right now for about an hour and a half to 2 hours instead of doing this. But I think that ultimately this is more productive for building my audience, like for forming a rapport and understanding what people want, what people are interested in. And so I think I have to spend my energies on that. What I've done now is so that I can stay full-time on YouTube. I've gone part-time at my day job. That just happened literally this past week. And folks, like, it's intimidating. It's really intimidating because, not only was that really my major income, it gave me full healthcare benefits. And working there part-time, I'm obviously just not going to be able to make as much money. Hopefully it's close, but it's not going to be as much. And I have to now pay about $400 a month for healthcare. And I don't have a choice there. I have to have that healthcare. I'm diabetic. I need to get my medication. If I didn't pay that $400 in healthcare for like insurance, I'd be paying for it out the pocket for all the medication. So I may as well pay for the healthcare, and then if I have an accident or something, I'm taken care of. So I have to, but it isn't fun. I've been having I don't remember them, but I've been having nightmares the last several nights, and I think it's just because I've got a new phase of life, a new stage, and there's a little uncertainty there. So I think my subconscious mind is coming up with sort of nightmares to sort of help me address those emotions. That's my take on it. We'll see. My girlfriend didn't like Lighthouse, but we're still together, so she must really like me. She probably does. Anyway, yeah, I would just say that so I'm nervous. So you will see me putting out a lot more content right now, and that's because if the money isn't coming from my previous day job, it has to come from YouTube. So I need to get the view count up, and the only way I can get my view count up is by producing content regularly. And if I'm lucky, every once in a while, one of them will hit with a bigger audience. I've got a better chance anyway if I just keep putting things out. So that's what I'm working on, and it's nerve-wracking. I just got off work. What did I miss? Well, James, first I took about 30 minutes or so, maybe only 20, to sort of give quick reviews of everything I read this week. The stuff I liked the most was Asadora by Naoki Urasawa, the new Reckless volume by Brubaker and Phillips, and back issues I got for Aliens Dead Orbit by James Stokoe through Dark Horse, back when they had the license. And now what I'm doing is drawing a riff on Texas Chainsaw Massacre with the characters from Ed Piskor's horror comic Red Room. So for anyone that's coming in later, that is what I am currently doing. And I'm having fun doing it. It's fun to talk to all of you. You ever look at doing Twitch streams? I think I mentioned before, but Prime members get 1 free sub per month, and streamers get money from every sub, free or not. No, I didn't know that. I have streamed once or twice on Twitch. I need to read more on exactly how you're supposed to handle all that. I don't understand it as well as I understand YouTube, but I should learn. Because, there's no reason why something like this couldn't be streamed across both YouTube and Twitch. And, there are ways to get the chats from both things in front of me. So, I'll look into that. Twitch probably would be a decent income source if this is what I'm trying to do, and I am, as my job. So, yeah, good advice. Good advice. All right, I got quiet there as I was doing some sketching. I've seen you in the Toy Galaxy streams, pros and cons. I think I've only managed to get into them twice because I just availability or something. But that's a channel I've enjoyed from time to time. I can't pretend that I've watched every episode that those guys have put out, but I do like toy history in general and commentary on toys. I'm not a big collector really, but I still like that stuff for some reason. There's also a show called Peg Warmers that I think is pretty good. There's a guy named Kevin, and he sits down with sometimes it's one guest, sometimes it's 2 or 3, and they'll have a topic for the week. They'll talk about what kind of toys they've added to their collection recently. They'll talk about toy news, and then they'll have a topic. Maybe it'll be modern distribution, or how a certain company is doing, or something like that. And I think that Peg Warmers is a pretty entertaining toy related show as well. So not quite the sort of little mini documentaries that whatchamacallit, Toy Galaxy puts out, but something good. Watch any horror movies over the weekend? Did I? I feel like I did watch one recently, but it's not coming to me. I mean, last weekend I watched Lamb and Halloween Kills. You know what I've seen horror-wise, though? That's got me thinking. The new Chucky TV show on, what is it? I think it's the Sci-Fi Channel that has it. The reason I don't know is I've been watching it on YouTube. They've put the episodes up on YouTube, which I think is pretty darn cool. And it's not bad. It's pretty well done, and probably shouldn't surprise me that much. It's done by the same guy that wrote all of the movies, minus the reboot. But and it's got still Brad Dourif as Chucky, and that doll's pretty hilarious. It's a good mix of some creepy ideas. I don't know if I can quite ever call Child's Play scary, but it can be creepy or disturbing from time to time, and it can also sort of mix in some pretty dark humor. So I've enjoyed the new Chucky TV show. I watched Monos and Corpse Grinders on Twitch. Yeah, there's a new Chucky TV show, Smokey's Videos. There's only 2 episodes up so far, and like I say, they're both up on YouTube for free. So if you have liked any of those movies, it's a pretty good jumping on point. It takes place in the same continuity as the movies, but they're starting with sort of a fresh jumping on point. So they're not constantly referencing stuff that's happened in previous movies. It's not important to the plot, but they've mentioned enough that you know that it has taken place, that all of those movies are part of the continuity, you know? So yeah, it's fun. I know you collect Donatello toys. I do. Have you happened across the Rad Plastic book? It is a collection of the concept art, etc. for the old TMNT line. No, I've never even heard of that. Rad Plastic. I will definitely try, to remember that. Sounds like the kind of thing that's pretty much up my alley. So thanks. Appreciate it. You guys are great. Guys and gals, and everybody else. Really appreciate it. Trying to always foster a positive community here that just, can share our love for a storytelling medium and the stuff related to that. Nobody's going to agree on everything, but it's a starting point, right? I think that, the stuff that brings people together is art in general. Like, music brings people together. Movies bring people together. They might have different political opinions or cultural beliefs or religious beliefs, but art can often bring us together. So I think that that's powerful and important. So, just really happy to have so many great folks here that always have cool recommendations and stuff for me and for each other. I appreciate that. Hopefully, you've gotten some good advice from each other from time to time on something to check out. Yeah, check out the Chucky Show. I think it's pretty good. It's only an hour long and stuff, and you've got to sort of balance. On TV, you can't just go from big set piece to big set piece to big set piece. Nobody has the time and the money to do that on a weekly basis. So instead, it's a little more character focused, but that can benefit horror because you want to care about some of the characters. You worry about what can happen to them, and then they'll usually have at least 1 to 2 sort of set pieces an episode, and they'll just do them really well. They've definitely had some disturbing kills, but the stuff that some of the kids do to each other is just as disturbing. It's about bullying in a lot of ways. The show is about modern day bullying. And it works. I think it works pretty darn well. Nope, that's not what I was looking for. This is it. I've been mainly buying trades and collected editions the last 2 years, but I'm gonna have to start a pull list at a comic shop when Saga returns. Yes, that'll be awesome. Any suggestions for other titles to add? Appreciate the question. I'm giving it some serious thought right now. I would say I'm trying to think of the monthly titles that I'm enjoying right now. Inferno just started by Jonathan Hickman, and you could literally read his trade paperback for House of X Powers of 10 and skip all the other X-Men stuff and get still a complete story. So that's cool. That's a monthly X-Men book. I would say that Something is Killing the Children is a good monthly book right now that I like. There's manga that I'm reading. Asadora, My Hero Academia. Though I would say that it's not monthly, it's more every 5 months or so, but anything by Ed Brubaker and Phillips, currently that's the Reckless series. I've put that on. I can't think of a lot of superhero stuff right now that I really have to recommend. I do read a little bit of it. It's not my main interest. I know what I've come across lately that I really liked. The Good Asian is a good crime series from Image Comics. And then there's also another crime comic that I'm reading from Image. Why am I not thinking of it right now? It's eluding me. That's a monthly title. Maybe it'll come to me. Sorry. I'm blanking. I'm blanking. I also saw recently, horror movie wise, Titan, or maybe it's Titan. It's Titane. It's a French horror movie. That was really cool. I like that. But it's weird, just so you know. Like, it starts with a girl getting pregnant after having sex with a car. And then it turns out she's a serial killer, basically, and she has to go on the run. So it's a very weird movie. None of that's really explained, per se. That's just the world it's in. But it was good, is all I can say. If you ever saw the French horror movie Raw from a couple years ago, it's by the same director. And that one was probably more literal, but yeah, it's good. I feel like there's some movies coming out like this weekend, right? It's not coming to me what they are, but I could swear that there's a couple big movies coming out this weekend. And then I know in like 2 weeks it's Eternals, which, you know, your mileage may vary on how excited you are by it, but it being a Marvel movie, that's going to be big. I'm looking forward to Eternals more for the people involved. You know, Chloe Zhao, the director, did that great movie, No Man Land. You know, she got the Oscar for it. I like the cast in it. Actually, I can't say I'm not a huge fan of Angelina Jolie, maybe, but I really like Kumail Nanjiani. I thought that Richard Madden was fantastic on Game of Thrones, in a character that when I read the books, I never really cared that much about Rob, but I did care about him when he was on the show, and I credit that to Rob Madden. He was also really good when he was in the Elton John biopic. Richard Madden was. And what else? Dan Lee, wasn't he from that Korean horror movie Train to Busan, if I'm remembering right? That was a good movie. Hope I'm remembering the right actor there. So I'm like, yeah, there's some good people involved behind the camera there. And you know, it's based on something Jack Kirby created. Cool. I wouldn't ever call Eternals my favorite Jack Kirby property. It's just too weird for that. But who knows? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm sure that they'll at least sort of change up some Marvel Comics cinematic universe stuff with the idea of, you know, things like the Eternals and Deviants and Celestials. I'm sure that all of that stuff will factor into like future things. They'll probably talk about alternate universes. That seems to be what Phase 4 is all about. So hopefully it's fun. What else? Eternals was never fantastic in the comics. Oh, Jesus, I forgot to move this so you could see what I'm doing. Even the Gaiman run was nothing super great. Yeah, I remember reading that because I was like, okay, I like John Romita Jr. art. I like Neil Gaiman written stories. And then, like, the book came out and I was just like, it's not that memorable. It's hard to relate to characters from, like, Inhumans and Eternals because they're just, you know, part of a secret society of, like, beings that, like, initially anyway, lives apart from humanity. Well, okay, that's cool, but I can't really relate to that the same way I can to, like, you know, a kid from Queens getting superpowers and having to balance that with, like, real life responsibilities. Like, you know, if you say that, like, the Inhumans had to get jobs for some reason. Okay, well, now I've got like a point that I can relate to. I want some street level villains again. Yeah. What would you call your favorite Jack Kirby property? Well, Captain America. Captain America. I love Captain America, and that's a Jack Kirby property. So yeah, that's who I'd put in my first position. Good question. But I mean, he co-created so much of the Marvel universe that it's like, because I like the Hulk, I like Thor, I like the X-Men, I like Silver Surfer and Galactus, I like the Fantastic Four. These are all Jack Kirby things. I like the New Gods, I like Darkseid, I like Scott Free and Big Barda, I like the Demon. So many good things that he created. Like, we're so lucky that he created so much in his time. I wonder who's the most prolific person in comic book history. Would it be Jack Kirby? Or is there somebody else that's like... Well, maybe not for like more ideas. Jack Kirby probably created more ideas, but Osamu Tezuka created like Astro Boy and Blackjack and a bunch of other characters that were well remembered and loved. And certainly books like Golgo 13 and One Piece have like massive, massive, massive runs, like super long. So that's a lot of content from a creator in the manga world. As far as, more ideas from like, one person, I don't know, Jack Kirby might be the most prolific. Do you have a favorite obscure Golden Age character? Well, maybe it's cliche to say, but cliche. No, maybe it's like weird to say, but I've got a fondness for 7-Eleven, that character that I did, where like the guy just decides to go to jail to cover for his friend so that his friend can like witness the birth of his child. His friend dies, and he doesn't go like, "Oh, well, guess what? I'm not that guy. I'm this guy." He goes to jail and stays there, and then he finds a way to dig himself out and like solve crimes at night, but then he willingly goes back to jail every morning. I'm like, this guy's an idiot. There's something I love about that, like how dumb he is. He's like supposed to be like, a lawyer or something. He's supposed to be smart. I'm like, you're not smart, bud. You don't have to go to jail to do all this. I don't know. So in some ways I love that, even though it's bad. Like I kind of love 7-Eleven. Osamu probably has to be number one. Aren't most anime and manga drawing ticks based on his work? I mean, he's definitely the godfather of manga. He's definitely like, that first real generation. And a lot of people that came right after him owe what they're doing to him, and then in turn what they did, influenced the next generation and so on. So it gets a little more diluted, but then people come back to the original. So yeah, like, he's just responsible for all sorts of important stuff. Maybe a more interesting question would be like, who has done the least in comics that still had an outsized impact? For instance, you could argue that Steranko has had a huge impact on comics versus he didn't like make that many comics. compared to a lot of other people. So that's one example. I don't know. That would be something interesting to analyze. Did I ever get around to reading Monstrous? I read most of the first volume. It's good. It didn't super hook me yet. I put it down and like started reading something else for some reason. So I guess I need to get back to it. Man, out here in the Pacific Northwest, the weather lately has been like, even for the Pacific Northwest, really hard to predict. Like we've gotten like huge rainstorms, but that will like then like disappear for a little while in the day and then come like right back. So we're getting like lots of rain lately, but it will like frequently just stop and we'll get like sunny skies and then it'll come like right back like that same day, like 30 minutes, an hour later. I don't know what the weather's like where all you are, but lately it's been hard to guess like what to wear because the temperature's also been fluctuating a lot. Very strange times. What's your favorite Avengers movie? I probably had the most fun at Endgame, but if you took it just by itself, I wouldn't necessarily say that it carries that much weight. It's that it works because of, how many movies and characters like it's sort of building upon. So like if it existed in a complete vacuum, I would say the first Avengers movie. Although if Civil War counts as a Avengers movie, that's in the running. Because that I thought was far superior to the comic that it was drawing from. We're getting a nor'easter tomorrow. Oh, good luck, Gene. I hope that like your windows are taped up and such, and that you don't have any big issues. We're getting a nor'easter over the bridge. We're going to have to eat fluffernutter sandwiches and a hoodsie with Jimmy's while we're stuck at home. To get home, just bang a Yui. Take the pike. Boston slang. Went scallop fishing most of this month. Spent every day in a t-shirt, which is kind of unusual around here in October. Yeah, most places. Any advice on panel layout? Oh, that's an interesting question, Kurt. I started with these 20 panel pages, and now I'm spreading it thinner across more pages with big splash panels. Would it be odd to mix both styles together? Well, I would say that it depends on what kind of an impression you're going for. Sometimes you can build consistency and then surprise people with a very different panel layout. Like if you have like pretty standard 4, 5, 6 panel grids, or even standard 9 panel grids or something like that, and then you jump to a splash page. Okay, then that's a surprise. Or you're going from kind of standard storytelling and you go to a 2-page spread of lots of smaller panels and it has lots of dialogue. Oh, okay, now I'm going to pause. I'm controlling my audience in what they expect. But if you're going to just sort of go back and forth between splash page, tons of panels with dialogue, splash page, tons of pages with dialogue, that feels like kind of... I'm struggling for the word I'm looking for, but it feels like kind of sloppy storytelling to me. If you're doing something like that, because it feels like you're not in control and guiding people's expectations. So it all depends. You know, you have to just like start giving some serious thought to like what kind of reading experience does this deliver? Like how fast would somebody read through this page, and how fast do I want them to get through this page? Do I want them, you know, like flying through it because they're excited to get to the next story twist? Well, then I'm going to have to space out my dialogue and not really, you know, like well, just control it that way. But if I'm, you know, just sort of slowly building, you know, I want like, you know, a small thrill, a small twist, another small thrill, another small twist, as things get like, now I want like a bigger impact. So you just have to constantly, that's why we do things like thumbnails. That's why thumbnails and, you know, revisions of a script are important. It's because we need to think of like what kind of an impact does this specific story have with this kind of a panel layout. And it's hard to just know that until you've had a lot of experience, like, and with your particular writing style. I would just say be willing to edit and be willing to do thumbnails until you're delivering the kind of pacing that's important to your story. Chris's Boston accent is coming through in this stream. Are you going to watch any Seattle Kraken versus Boston Bruins hockey games now that the NHL is in Seattle? Well, I don't have like regular TV or cable, so it's not easy for me to like watch too much in terms of live sports. I do have the NFL app, which allows me often to watch my New England Patriots. So I guess there probably are ways to also watch the NHL. But I have to admit, I've never been a huge hockey fan. I liked playing it a bit when I was younger, when I was a kid, growing up. But I was never great at it, first of all. And yeah, I've just never followed that sport too closely. I couldn't, with honesty, claim to be a huge hockey fan. Yeah. Is hockey popular over there for you, Daniel? Is hockey a popular sport, or is it more soccer or football? Yeah, I'm a Patriots fan. I mean, I'm from Boston, guys. Like, that's what happens when you grow up in that area. You're a fan of, usually, where you grow up. That's who you're introduced to. That's who you can easily follow. All right, I'm having fun with this. I know it's not the most original concept, but I'm having fun with the sort of little like hatching techniques and shading techniques that I can use on it. I just wish I knew where I put my kneaded eraser, because I really want to clean this up a bit. And I'm just not seeing where I... Oh, there it is. Ha ha ha. Ha ha! Thanks for your input. You saying, wow, 20 immediately got me back into Photoshop, stretching out thumbnails, etc. for pacing. 20 is a lot of panels for a page. That's, you know, if you are intentionally trying to slow down your audience's reading, then you do more panels. If you're trying to speed them up, you do less panels in general. It also has to do with how much dialogue and information is being imparted. But yeah. Soccer football is the most popular sport, but hockey is also one of the most popular sports over here in Sweden. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that hockey was that popular in Sweden, but it makes sense. Hockey is very popular in, like, you know, Canada and Russia and countries that have snow and ice. I'm from Philly, and the moment I moved to Boston, the Eagles took the bowl from the Pats. I see. did I do the pencils on this one? Yeah, I did the pencils, but just to be clear, these pencils are literally referenced directly from the layout for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre poster. I've just changed the character a bit. This is a character from the book Red Room by Ed Piskor, but I'm intentionally doing what I hope is a very obvious homage to a famous horror movie for a more recent horror comic. Homages are tricky things, you know? You don't want to make anybody think that you're coming up with this as an original idea. I definitely don't want to impart that idea. It's very intentionally meant to evoke. It's just putting in... It's not even evoke. I mean, this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've just put a different character in the space of Leatherface. That's all it is. But I thought it would be kind of fun for Halloween season to do something horror related, and this was kind of just a nice, easy thing I could do tonight. Your recent video on horror comics was a lot of fun. Nice work. Thanks, James. I've been getting basically nothing but nice comments on that one, and I think that's just sort of it's a good feeling when now I'm trying to do this full time. You know, it's obviously important to me to be delivering content that people like and connect with. So I was like, well, I like horror. Not everybody does. So let's just change it up a little by trying to put a little bit of humor into the episode itself and talk about a few different things instead of just one. But next week, the episode I'm currently working on is about just one horror comic book. I do a show about comic books, not movies. Although I probably would enjoy doing a show about movies. I would love to do that, but I just don't have enough time to do everything. If somebody else was running the show and I just could be the hired commentary guy, just give my opinions in real time, I'd love that. Something like, Red Letter Media, for instance. I think I could do that. I'll flatter myself and say I think I am enough of a cinephile that I could give real-time, valuable opinions about movies. But I just happen to like comic books a little more, so that's what I do. A show about comics. Tom Scioli's 400 panels a page. Yeah, it's fun to experiment with stuff like that. Are you streaming on multiple spots today or just YouTube? Right now, just YouTube. I'm pretty sure I have to grow this channel to a certain amount before I can enable it to stream in multiple platforms. I'm not 100% sure about that. But, yeah. So, got to... But I definitely need to grow this to allow myself to be able to accept super chats, which would be nice. Would be nice. Ever work with a chainsaw? They're intimidating machines, you know? There's a lot to them. There's a lot of power there. A lot of potentially destructive power. It's cool, but it's a little intimidating to me. I would say that I got more nervous handling a chainsaw than I ever did handling a firearm. I felt like a firearm, I don't know, I felt a lot more in control of that than I did with a chainsaw. That's probably just my imagination getting the better of me, is all that is. I'm thinking of Maybe doing something at an archery range for an episode about Hawkeye with that show coming out. I don't know exactly what that would be yet, but I feel like it could be kind of fun. Way back when the channel was like much newer, I did an episode about Suicide Squad, and I went to a gun range and just shot up a comic. So that was kind of fun. Any plans for Halloween? I'll be working that day, I believe. Let's see, what day of the week is that? Let me look at the calendar real quick. Halloween. Wow. Under a week away. Yeah, Sunday. I'll be working until early evening. So no real plans. I bought a bunch of candy and a little bit of decoration for the house so that like kids can know that they can come here. So we'll have some candy out for them. But, no parties or anything for me this year. But how about any of you? Anybody else out there going to, a party or a show? Got a costume for any reason? Definitely would be curious if anybody out there has an interesting Halloween costume this year. That would be dope. Sunday. What did I say? Did I say Saturday? People are saying Sunday. Oh, maybe it was just when I was asking. There's the delay. Will you wear a costume at work? No, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. No, can't do that. Interesting. Anyone doing anything for Halloween? Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. Anybody here? You got to be unpartnered from Twitch to be able to dual stream. Oh, okay. So, that's interesting. So if I can either do this on YouTube or on Twitch, but I can't do it on both at once if I want to monetize Twitch. Okay. I didn't know that. So now I have to make a decision, like which platform, basically reaches the most people. Like that's the main question here, is which one reaches the most folks. I don't really know the answer off the top of my head. Obviously, all of us right now are here on YouTube, so it wouldn't be very scientific to use that as information. Well, I think I've basically done what I'm looking to accomplish with this. If I did anything else, it would really just be putting in some text mimicking the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tagline and stuff, but like for Red Room, maybe coloring it digitally, for instance. That could be kind of fun. But yeah, I had fun doing this, just in terms of getting to use different inking techniques for splatters and shines and shading, all sorts of fun stuff. That was cool. Your art is looking great. Well, I don't know about that, but I had fun. You can do both at once since you're not getting Twitch money directly. Oh, okay. Your brother suffers from depression? If it helps, Matthew, yeah. Leotrim, don't be sad. You can get through this and stay strong. You're amazing. It's true. Everybody's amazing. I know what it's like to suffer from depression. I'll just add that. Because I do. Very severely. I've had some dark times, like where I wasn't on the right medication, really, and I wasn't managing things well. But these days I am. I credit just focusing on work, socializing, keeping myself invested in stuff that I care about, like this, and eating well. Either eating well and or exercising legit makes a difference. So, it hurts to hear that somebody else is dealing with depression, because I do every single day. I really do. It's a constant struggle. It's not something that goes away. It's just something that you can manage. If what I said can help in any way, that makes me happy. But, just try. It's not easy. I know. It's not easy to try to be happy. You can't just magically do it. But there are people that care, and it's worth it. You will have good times if you can struggle through the bad times. Just ask for help too. Just please ask for help if you feel low. If you feel low, please. How is the diet going? It's going pretty well. That's me these days. I think I've got a good shape right now, right? You seeing me sideways? Here's me on the sides. It's not like sort of puffing out on each side too much, right? Sorry, I've got like a little bit piece of a paper here. Yeah, that was... Anyway, I don't know that, I don't know if I'm skinny, but I'm definitely not at my heaviest anymore, which is nice. So, and I wouldn't call it specifically a diet. It's just a lifestyle change. I've just made a real commitment to not having sugar or carbs wherever I can make that choice. Like, I'm pulling them out. So, all I drink really is water. Don't really drink anything but water. Generally don't eat any breads, and definitely don't have things like, chips. I'll allow myself for snacks to have like certain nuts. Almonds are good. Peanuts are decent. Popcorn can be okay if it's not like super buttery stuff. Like, popcorn's not too bad. So those are the kind of snacks that I'll usually have. No candy, no chips, and generally no like fast food, because it's too hard to remove the buns or the sauces and stuff like that. I love Chinese food, but really not gonna have that anymore. Yeah. Not even Diet Mountain Dew. I don't even have Diet Mountain Dew Mandela Butterfly, because that still has caffeine in it, and the caffeine, I've always struggled with an addiction to caffeine, always. I love it, and I know that if I was having it regularly and one day I couldn't find that Diet Mountain Dew or something, I'm not going to do the responsible thing. I'm just going to... that would lead me to backslide and just get a regular soda or a Starbucks, and I'd go I can handle it this one time. But I've done this many times in my life. I go, I can handle just one fun Starbucks or one Mountain Dew today, and it always ends up with me getting right back onto just having way too much of it. So anyway, you look in great shape, Chris. You've definitely lost weight. I think so. Yeah, I've been working on it. But my goals aren't really to lose weight, and I think that's why I'm able to, in a way. My goal is just to keep my blood sugar and diabetes under control. So every single time I'm hungry, I'm just making a decision. And it's really easy to make that decision when I've seen how bad my numbers were when I had COVID and everything, because my numbers escalated there because I was also on things like steroids, and when you're sick, your blood sugar goes up. And I was also just eating whatever was available. So I got out of control pretty bad. And, it's seeing how bad it got. It's easy to just go, okay, well, I would love to eat this thing, but I don't want to hurt myself and affect my vision or my energy levels or anything. My energy is great. It's helping me get these videos out to you guys on time. So it's totally worth it. It's worth it. Every time it's just a decision, and it's not that hard of a decision. It really isn't. Anyway, I loved the lettering episode. Any other comic production videos coming? I don't have one in the works right now, Charlie. But I'm proud of my lettering episode. I'm proud of my coloring episode. So I definitely have ideas in the back of my head about talking about things like printing, editing, some of the things like that. Some of the stuff that doesn't always get talked about in comics, but are obviously key factors in getting a book out. So definitely have ideas for that stuff, but not actively working on that right now. Next, I'm going to have a horror episode out for you right before Halloween, and then I've got a bunch of all sorts of stuff, actually. Just all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to take off, guys. I'm going to call it a show at this point. It's been 2 hours, which is pretty much right where I'm aiming for. We got to talk about some really cool comics that came out in the past week, and we got to draw something and talk with all of you. So thank you for helping make my week so awesome. And I will see you next week. You'll see me even sooner because there'll be a Comic Tropes episode before you see me. Same time, same place. I'll be doing this next week. Till I see you next time, I want all of you to keep reading comics.